What's up, guys? It's been a while. So I'm here today to discuss my first trimester and what I went through in terms of body changes, hormonal changes, and events that what I believe led to me finally being able to conceive. As some of you or many of you may know, I suffer from PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome, and I also suffer from endometriosis. And for the last 6 years, my husband and I have been unsuccessful in trying to conceive naturally. I underwent a laparoscopy surgery, as well as I underwent a natural form of fertilization help from a fertility clinic by use of injections and pills, orally and vaginally, as well as timed sex, and that was a failure. And upon further checks, we found out that a previous laparoscopy unfortunately helped cause a little bit of damage to the left ovary. So I really only had my right ovary to rely on in terms of getting pregnant. Also at the time, I was a little bit heavier before, and that was also a contributing factor to making it harder to conceive. And it also is a point for me to mention that I was not eating properly early on when we were first attempting to become pregnant. I was very stressed out. I was also someone who got moody really easy when the topic of pregnancy came up, because we had tried so many times that it actually became a sore subject to discuss after a while. So for those of you who are going through what I went through or something similar, or for those of you who don't know, as I mentioned before, we've been going through this for about 6 years, and pretty much at the last fertility visit, the doctor kind of nicely said maybe we should either consider in vitro or we should consider just going the route of adoption. The reason he suggested in vitro was because, as a combination of my obesity, my hereditary factors of the endometriosis and PCOS, my current level of damage from my last laparoscopy surgery, and the outcome of the fertility treatment we tried that failed, all of those led him to believe that at the time, me conceiving naturally was something that more than likely would not happen. And we didn't want to go the route of in vitro because I'm not sure how much it is in other states, but here in Texas, in vitro, each session is about 15 grand. And as some of you may not know, basically when you do in vitro, you're taking a risk by having your eggs fertilized, and you're having a cluster of sorts put inside of you, and you're playing a law of averages. You're hoping that at least one of them becomes successful, but there's possibility that every last one of those clusters, every last one of those eggs will become fertile, and good luck to you, you're pregnant. But there's also a very small, but there is also a risk that the session may not be successful. And after discussing that with my husband, we determined that the possibility of it being successful was not, in our opinion, worth the risk of spending 15 grand on something that may or may not work. If it was a guaranteed success, maybe it was something for us to consider, but we chose not to go that route. And we were looking at the possibility of adoption, but it was one of those moments where I was really depressed after the last failed attempt to get pregnant. So we decided to put the talk of adoption on hold, but it was still an option. What I determined to do was I had spent so many years stressing over trying to get pregnant. I would go on so many yo-yo diets, thinking if I dropped a certain amount of weight, I could get pregnant. I read all sorts of articles on different diets to try. We've learned many different ways of couples getting pregnant, and we tried it all. We tried everything from drinking certain things or omitting certain foods. We even tried having sex in certain positions, or the craziest one was we had a friend say she got pregnant, but after sex she had to literally put a bunch of pillows under herself and stay upside down in that position for a certain amount of time to further ensure the success of the sperm meeting the egg. And we even went that route and nothing was successful. And the more ridiculous the theories I came across, just the angrier I got. And after that last failed attempt, I just got to a point where I just really mentally was ready to hang in the towel on giving birth naturally altogether. And that was a really big pill to swallow, because my husband and I have really wanted a family for quite a long time, and to have to sit down and realize that this was not likely going to happen was a pretty big blow. And I'm very grateful that I have a husband that was very calm and very understanding of my feelings of the matter, and someone who was very patient with me during my emotional trials going through this. And I appreciate that very much, but there was a tremendous weight weighing on me with going through this attempt to try to conceive, because there's a belief that if you can't have a child, you don't seem to matter much as a female. And that's not true, but at the same time, I'd be lying to you if feeling inferior of sorts didn't cross my mind when I looked around and saw all these moms out there, and I have to look at them and realize that that may never be me. And that was something that hurt the most for me, because I just didn't know how to deal with not being able to have a family. And I felt as though my purpose, or one of my purposes in life, was kind of stolen from me. And I kind of just took a step back and was actually questioning my worth as a human being, because to me at the time, giving birth was the epitome of my ability as a woman. And if I'm not able to do that, then what's my purpose? And I went through some very heavy emotional moments. I mean, emotional to the point where the emotional eating took place. I was extremely depressed, extremely moody, really irritable, and I was also to the point of trying to convince my husband, who divorced me, so he could actually have an opportunity to have a female that would be able to bear him children. And as horrible as that sound is, it's the only way I can describe how I felt. It was literally that moment that doctor told me that it was pretty much not going to happen. That was easily one of the lowest points of my life. And I had a moment when I just decided one day that I can't change the conditions I have. And I said, rather than stress, let's just continue to do what we've always done. I had a weight loss journey going on, and that was becoming successful since the surgery. So we agreed to just continue with the weight loss journey, something that made me happy. And once a certain amount of weight was lost, then we said we would go back to the clinic and give it another try just to see. But we just had the inkling that maybe if I just worked a little bit harder with my health and my weight, that perhaps we could overcome the odds of infertility and become pregnant. So I had lost over 60 pounds at the time, and I had made a lot of changes to my diet. I severely cut back on fast food. I cut back on sodas. I cut back on sweets and snacks, and I ate a lot of fruits and vegetables, ate a lot of salads. I was also very active, up to 6 to 7 days a week. I did up to 4 miles of cardio in terms of power walking and or light jogging. I would do that about 5 days a week at the time. And I did gym sessions maybe 2 to 3 times a week, and I attended some form of physical activity class, from Zumba to spin, step, or yoga 2 to 3 times a week. So I made a pretty hectic schedule in terms of my fitness, because not only was it something that was getting me fit and was helping me become healthier, it was also something that was taking my mind off of the failed pregnancy attempts, and it was something that was my way of coping with that type of grief, and something that was also rehabilitating in a way. For me, I'm at my happiest when I'm in nature. So I love being outside. I love going on walks. I like hikes. I like being at the beach, being on the water. Those moments, to me, puts my mind at the greatest ease. In terms of exercising, I always do my best thinking when I'm in motion. If I'm doing a 5K, if I'm doing a walk, I have tons of ideas flowing through my head. I have so many thoughts going in and out of my head. And if I just take the time to sit and dwell on it for a little bit, I come to my clarity a whole lot faster versus me being in a work environment trying to think, or me being in a stressed state of mind trying to think about something. So flash forward to this year, I'll be 17 weeks pregnant tomorrow on Tuesday. And we discovered that we were pregnant around February-ish, when I was 6 days late for my cycle. And after my last successful laparoscopy, I've been having normal periods ever since then. So I definitely knew something was wrong when I had missed 6 days. I can't explain what other mothers may have felt when they first knew that they were pregnant, but as I mentioned earlier, I go to yoga a lot, and we do a lot of floor exercises when we're laying on our bellies. And I noticed that as time wore on, it was becoming slightly more and more uncomfortable for me to lay on my stomach. I couldn't figure out why. I was going through certain symptoms and I didn't know what it meant. It was suddenly a pain for me to do my 4 miles, and it didn't make any sense. I would be completely tired after 2 miles, and I couldn't figure out why. My back would start aching like crazy 2 miles in. It was little things that I was noticing that I had not been dealing with before that I'm suddenly dealing with now. We live in a 2-story home, so I usually don't get winded going up the stairs, but around that time I found myself getting winded doing simple things. I was winded going up the stairs. If I did a light sprint, I got tired really fast. In Zumba class or in yoga, simple poses was really throwing my equilibrium off for some reason. And so holding poses in yoga was harder to do. In Zumba classes, I got tired faster. So I was constantly guzzling water because I was always tired. And I have never took so many naps in my life. I have literally fallen asleep in so many different areas of this house. It's ridiculous. I fell asleep in the chair just in the middle of watching a documentary. I've even fallen asleep as I was folding laundry on the bed, and something just caused me to lay down for a quick second, and next thing you know, my husband wakes me up and says I was sleeping in the middle of the laundry. So I was literally napping a lot, and I knew I had to do something, and I posted the video. If you guys want to check that out, I'll post the link in the description box below of how I surprised my husband when I found out what was going on in terms of me discovering that I was successful. So it turned out that we actually were successful around January. And what I can say that I personally believe is something that contributed to us becoming pregnant. The number one, I literally stopped stressing about having a baby. I literally stopped stressing about it. When I say in the past I was stressing, I was reading baby articles, trying different things, doing different positions sexually wise, trying to hold myself upside down and crazy things of that nature. And I always got upset whenever the ovulation test didn't turn out the way I wanted. I always got upset when pregnancy tests, blood tests failed, to the point where I dwelled on it for days and days, and it affected me mentally, and it affected me to the point where it was affecting my workouts. It was affecting how I ate, because I was so down in the dumps about not becoming successful with our attempts of pregnancy that it was literally pretty much wrecking my way of life in terms of how I was doing things on my normal day-to-day schedule. And so when we made the decision to kind of not focus on having a baby, my mind was opened to do so many other different things and focus on so many other different things. Instead of focusing on this one thing or what I couldn't do, I was able to recondition my mind and focus on being appreciative of the way things are. And I was able to think about tasks at hand, like making sure I'm getting enough water, making sure I'm eating my fruits and vegetables, making sure that I'm severely limiting my junk food intake or my fast food intake, things of that nature. And so me having a clearer head and me having a more positive outlook on my situation, in my opinion, was the number one thing that I think led to me becoming successful. Because if you do your research, it does actually show that stress is a chemical imbalance that can literally throw you off in a negative way health-wise, and stress can actually inhibit you from pregnancy. And you're talking to a person whose stress level was once so high. I ended up being diagnosed with high blood pressure, and was placed on medication for it. So my stress level was extremely high at the time. And the second thing that I believe helped me become pregnant was me changing up my eating habits. I'm not saying you have to eat like a vegetarian or you have to be on a super strict diet to lose weight or things of that nature, because women of all different shapes and sizes have gotten pregnant, and women of different health levels have gotten pregnant. So I don't believe there's a number one magic way you have to be to become pregnant. But I will say that the healthier you are, the more chances of success you will have of becoming pregnant. So by me exercising more, by me eating better, by me becoming more hydrated, in conjunction with me having a clearer head, I believe all of those things work together, and that's what allowed me to finally become successful naturally. So I want to say to you women out there who are still trying to conceive, or if you're feeling like I felt at the time and you just want to throw in the towel, I just want you guys to just try to recondition your thought process and try to still hold on to that faith, because I've been there. Like I said, this has been going on for 6 years. 6 years. And I know what it's like to just give up. I know what it's like just throw in the towel and just say, forget it. We're going to just adopt or not think about it or do whatever. And I know it's very disheartening to go through so many failed attempts of trying to get pregnant. And some mothers out there may have done worse. Some of you may have suffered a miscarriage or more, and that I know can be very, very devastating, and I completely understand. But I promise, if you continue to just do your best to be healthy, be hydrated, and be as stress-free as you can be, when the time is right, you will be able to conceive. And it used to make me really angry to see mothers with children, and it seemed as though they really didn't care for them. And for a female who's been under the knife, who's underwent injections, medications, who spent years trying to have just one child, to see an unappreciative mother with her children, that was something that really used to just get to me, because it made me question, why are all these undeserving moms out there popping out kids like crazy? But I'm someone that wants to give the whole world to my child. I have so much to teach them, so much to show them, so much that I want to give, and I just can't have just one. And as negative as that was my way of thinking. And I had to learn that I'm still who I am, child or not. And I also had to revamp my ideas of what it meant to be a mother. Just because I couldn't, or because I thought I couldn't conceive, didn't mean that there are thousands of children in this nation that are in desperate need of loving families. And just because I couldn't give birth to a child naturally did not mean that I couldn't give my love and couldn't give my help to a child in need here, so they could feel wanted and they could feel like they belonged with the loving family. So for those of you who have already, or it's already been determined that you're infertile, or you're determined that you're not going to have children, there are so many kids out there that are desperate for loving homes. And I've seen many families here who have taken the opportunity to become foster parents or have taken in those children as one of their own. And these are some of the happiest children I've ever seen, because instead of coming home to uncertainty every day, or you're watching different children go in and out of the house, for them to have a house that they can come home to every day, to have their own rooms, to have parents that they can call theirs, to have either have siblings or just to have their own family. I can imagine there's no greater feeling that you can give a child than love and acceptance of a family. So there's that. I gave you guys my ideas of what I think led to me overcoming my PCOS infertility issues. I discussed some of the things that I went through in terms of the first trimester. I am now in my second trimester, so I'm not really going through a whole bunch of changes that are just mind-boggling. The baby is definitely making its presence known now, and I'm going through, how should I say, I'm going through more skin changes now than I did in the first trimester. The first trimester, I noticed that I broke out in the face and back a little bit more than I was used to doing. But this time, it's kind of doing the opposite. I'm not breaking out, but I'm experiencing dry skin patches in certain parts of my face. So I have to put more effort into keeping my skin moisturized, and I have to put a little more effort into staying hydrated to alleviate that issue. I've also noticed that I was severely drained of energy in the first trimester. I've become very energetic again here as the second trimester. But I will point out that even though I am more energetic, when I'm tired, I'm tired. Sorry guys for the switch. I had to go to the phone camera because I ran out of memory space on my SD card, and I didn't feel like going through all those pictures to try to free up some space at the moment. So we're gonna go this route. So as I was saying, there's no right or wrong way I've discovered in terms of becoming pregnant. There are success stories all over the place. There are many different methods out there, from the medical to the holistic approach. And what I just discovered through my personal journey is by decreasing my stress and just focusing on becoming the best self that I could become, the lack of stress and the replenishment of being more focused on me and my needs and what made me happy, I think, is what led to me becoming successful. And I wanted to impart to everyone out there who is either going through a similar situation to please not lose hope. There is always an opportunity for it to happen. But a piece of advice that I was given that I didn't really want to hear at the time, but now that it's happened, it's made sense, is I was told that things don't always happen according to my timetable, but when it is time, whether you believe in God or not, when things are meant to happen, it's going to happen. And so I stopped trying to make it happen when I wanted it to happen, and just let it happen when it was meant to happen. And when I finally let that advice take root and I started living that advice, that's when it happened. So I'm living proof of that, and I hope some of you out there are not as impatient as I was and not as thick-headed as I was to not let that piece of advice sink in, but is God's honest, good advice. So be sure to always keep your best health first. take care of your mental health, take care of your physical health, take care of your emotional health. You're about to embark on something so beautiful that every day, as my belly gets slightly bigger and bigger, I'm learning more and more about myself. I'm learning more and more about my child. And it's an adventure that I really just can't describe. The moment I saw my baby in that ultrasound, I literally cried, because that image was something I've waited so many years to see, and to see it finally, to hear his heartbeat, to see its hands moving, just to see it move, to know that that was happening right now inside of me. There's no feeling in the world, not winning the lottery, not winning an Oscar or a Grammy. There's no better feeling that I can describe for someone who's tried for so many years to have a baby than to finally see that baby in that ultrasound. That's a moment that is literally just indescribable. And to see your stomach slowly expanding, and to see your body go through all these hormonal changes. Some people freak out by the changes. I didn't really see it that way because it comes with the territory of becoming pregnant. So I welcomed the changes. And I also think of it this way. This is a process, a 9-month process. And this is something that you're going to remember for the rest of your life. So the good, the bad, the funny, and the painful, I'm taking in every bit of this. So yeah, the backache suck, but I'm taking it in. I've been blessed to not have morning sickness. I did not come across morning sickness, thank goodness. I have come across the occasional periods of nauseousness, but nothing lasting longer than a few minutes. In terms of cravings, I went through a craving of spicy food for my first trimester, and I don't really care for spicy food, so that's how I knew something was up. But luckily for me, that phase only lasted a couple of weeks. I am a big fan of eating a bunch of kosher dill half pickles, so the pickle thing was true for me. I really love pickles. And that's been a favorite go-to snack of mine since this pregnancy. I have become a very, very, very busy snacker. It seems I'm always putting something in my mouth, and it's been very nice, very frustrating sometimes, but very nice to have a husband to wheel me in when I'm kind of going off the rack of what I was putting in my mouth, because I went through a lot of phases of craving different things, and it just would not leave my head until I had it. And if you are going through cravings, I will say that with these particular pregnancy fruit cravings, once you have it, even if you just have a little bit, you're literally satisfied with that craving. It's not something you need to continue to have. And the only thing food-wise about pregnancy that makes me sad is I can't have sushi. Sushi's my favorite food, and I can't have it. So that's hurting me a little bit, but you know, it comes with the territory, and I promise you, as soon as this baby comes out, I am going to be getting it in on my sushi. I'm also a big fan of sub sandwiches, and some of you may or may not know, it's not ideal for you to have deli meats that's not heated. So when I go through sandwiches, I just make sure I get the toasted option, or if I'm making a sandwich at home, I just zap my deli meat in the microwave for a short period of time just to kill any bacteria. And I have obviously avoided alcohol, and I also was diagnosed with gestational diabetes. So unfortunately, I have to prick my finger 4 times a day and maintain a blood sugar level through a certain point to make sure that I'm as healthy as I can be baby wise. I wasn't a big fan of that, but it's one of those things where I don't like doing it, but you'll do anything for the health of your child. So it's one of those things where I'm sucking it up and I'm dealing with it. Also, the good thing about gestational diabetes is it's temporary. Usually after a couple of months after birth, the gestational diabetes will disappear and you'll be back to your regular situation. I will point out that because I do have PCOS, insulin resistance is something I've been dealing with prior to pregnancy, and I'm sure it's going to be something I'll be dealing with again once the baby is born. So coming across gestational diabetes does increase your risk of hitting type 2 diabetes within a 10-year span. So if you are following a good diet program to keep your blood sugar in check, please don't just drop your health habits after your baby is born and just go crazy eating whatever you want, because you're going to live to regret it some years down the road. And that was advice that was given to me directly from my nutritionist. So I have scaled back on certain things that I've been eating, and I have been making changes as I went. And the blessing in disguise of having gestational diabetes is you start to learn what things in your food trigger a spike in your insulin level that you may not have thought about. For example, I had no idea that dairy, in particular cheese and sour cream and things of that nature, I had no idea that those things were such a major spike level in my insulin. I also noticed that things that I thought were maybe a decent amount of salt, a high sodium count can also, and a high carb count can also affect your insulin level, because carbs do eventually break down to fat and sugar. So those were things that I didn't realize at the time when I didn't have it. So that's making me revamp some of my favorite meal. It's made me think twice about things I consume, and it's made me cut back on certain things. And it's also taught me to make healthier choices on things that I didn't think was worth making a health swap over. So I'm learning more about my body through having gestational diabetes. So in a way, it turned itself into a learning opportunity for me. And so for that, I saw the silver lining, and I'm grateful. What I'm also going through now is I have not experienced no major hormonal issues, probably because with PCOS and endometriosis, your hormones are already slightly unbalanced in the first place. And so certain things that I noticed were symptoms of pregnancy were things I was already experiencing. So, and my husband will joke that it comes with the territory of being a female. So he wasn't surprised by a lot of the symptoms I've been going through. But some of the obvious symptoms that I'm going through now, entering the second trimester, is I do have my energy back, but I am still experiencing the back pain. The baby is more pronounced in my stomach now. So before, I knew something was there, but I didn't feel it as much. I'm definitely starting to feel the baby now. So the changes I've made in my exercises, I did so in preparation for what would happen as my belly got bigger. And now that my stomach is getting bigger, I am experiencing the results of those preparations that I was doing. I am working out more because I have been a person through experience that laziness breeds a whole lot of unnecessary challenges that I did not want to experience. So I make it a point to try to get in at least 30 minutes of cardio. If not every day, I do my best to shoot for at least 3 to 5 days a week. I do my best to get in as much weight training as possible. And I know weight training can be a little bit of a taboo subject, so I'll leave it at this. Discuss with your doctor the best method to take in terms of your weight training. Luckily for me, because I was already on a weight loss journey prior to pregnancy, and because heavy lifting and weight training was already a part of my regimen prior to getting pregnant, I was given clearance to continue doing what I was doing. And so that was my situation. That is not the case for everybody else. So please, before you decide to take on lifting weights, or if you wish to continue doing a certain type of exercise, please consult with your OB first to make sure you are cleared. I have been cleared to do just about everything that I was doing. My particular doctor just asked me to do power walking instead of running, and I made a lot of modifications to my yoga routine, and there are a few yoga poses that are not suitable for you to do while pregnant. But on the flip side of that, I have seen many yoga Instagrams where poses that I am not able to do as pregnant, they are doing it. But I also want to put out there that many of these yogis have been doing this for years and years as a practice. So it was nothing to them to continue doing those poses, whereas I've only been practicing yoga for a little over a year. So I still consider myself a novice at yoga, because again, yoga is a practice. It's something that the more you do it, the better you'll become, but it's also a learning experience. So I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody. If I can't do the pose, I'm not doing the damn pose. And I have no qualms about that. And I have discovered, for you yoga fans out there, that for a pregnant lady, child's pose is very, very beneficial at this point during the pregnancy. I also plan on going the extra mile and maybe investing in maybe a small kind of, what's some things called? Like a little bean bag. So certain poses that may involve laying on the front, I'll be able to do, but for the time being, I don't lay on my stomach at all, and I do not bend backwards at all. Unfortunately, there are some poses I have to give up. My plow is becoming more difficult, so eventually that's something I'll have to give up, and my shoulder stands are becoming more uncomfortable, so I'm pretty sure that's something I'm going to be hanging up for a while too. In terms of my weightlifting, I still pretty much do what I've been doing, but I don't go out of my way to overstress my body. I don't try to push myself to a max weight, and I just stick with a weight that tires my muscles, but I can still do my 3 sets of 15 or 20 of whatever it is exercise wise I'm doing. I have not given up any particular machines per se, except for the elliptical and the stationary bike. Again, I'm considering balance issues and the overall safety of me as a pregnant woman. So I stick with the treadmill, and I stick with power walking in terms of my cardio. I plan on getting back into Zumba, but because Zumba takes a lot of jumping and a lot of stop and go motion, it's something I don't plan on doing very often. But dancing is something I've always enjoyed doing, so it's something I don't necessarily want to give up, but it's something that I am and have been cutting back on quite a bit. In terms of what I've been going through emotionally wise, besides me wanting to take a bunch of cat naps, I really have been the same, except for my concept of time is different now going through pregnancy than it was before. And what I mean by that is, prior to pregnancy, I had a particular system. I got up during a certain amount of time. I got my meals in through a certain amount of time. I got ABC done in terms of my workouts. I had dinner ready by a certain time frame. I had a system for getting everything that I wanted done. And for some reason, going through pregnancy, my understanding of time has pretty much just gone through the window, because my sleep patterns are so unpredictable. There are some nights I sleep fine through the night. There are some nights I don't get much sleep at all, that it throws me off the next day. And me having naps in between my days now also affect things that I get done. So sadly, I'm not getting as much done during my pregnancy like I was doing before. So that's a downside that I'm sad about. But it's also something that comes with the territory, and I'm learning bit by bit to try to do better in terms of my time management. My eating habits, I try to avoid giving into my cravings all the time, but I am a heavy snacker. I am, but I try to snack on healthy things. I make a lot of home smoothies. I eat a lot of fruits. I'm trying to do better on the vegetables. I'm much better with getting in my water, and I do a lot of home cooked meals, and I do my best to try to cut back on fast foods. And I have changed up a bit to what I eat in terms of fast food, because again, I have gestational diabetes, so certain things I can't eat anymore to avoid the insulin spiking. So for the most part, I'm looking forward to what the rest of the second trimester has to offer. I hope I've touched on a lot of things in terms of PCOS, endometriosis, and trying to conceive with the first trimester and what I've been going through in terms of my developmental changes. And I'll continue to keep you guys posted as the trimesters goes along and as I'm entering the third. I also post a lot on my Instagram in terms of the pregnancy journey. So if you want to follow me there, it's under Curly Boo Fitness. You can follow my Instagram, and you can follow the Facebook under the same name if you want to catch up with me and see what's going on, because I post on Instagram almost every day. I'm working to be better with this channel, as I promised as one of my resolutions. So I'm doing my best on that. But again, sometimes my concept of time gets a little off, so it gets a little harder for me to throw in one of these videos from time to time. So I do apologize. So that's my story. I've caught you guys up with what's going on with me. And for those of you who are following me, thank you so much. For those of you who are meeting me for the first time, welcome. And thank you so much for checking out this video and for checking out my channel. And please take the time to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel for more videos. Again, my social media information will also be in the description below. And thank you guys so much for watching this video. God bless you guys.
I never knew such a day could come, and I never knew such a love could be inside of one. I never knew what my life was